All right, settle in, make yourself comfortable. Thank you for joining me today. You're about to step into a story, a truly chilling one, about what lurked beneath the gaslight glow of Victorian London. I wonder where in the world you're watching or listening from, and what time it is for you right now. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying this, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter of this unfolding mystery. Now imagine this. The year is 1888, late autumn. You're in London, the heart of the British Empire, a city perpetually shrouded in a veil of mist and industry. But today feels profoundly different, as if the very air has taken on a sinister personality. You push open the heavy oak door of your lodgings in Whitechapel, stepping out onto the cobblestones. Instantly, a taste floods your mouth, sharp and undeniable. It's not the familiar damp earth, or the comforting, if sooty, coal smoke you've grown accustomed to. No, this is metallic, almost sweet in an unsettling way, yet with an insistent undercurrent of something acrid, like biting into a copper penny that's been left out in a puddle on a grimy alleyway. It catches at the very back of your throat, a peculiar, unwelcome guest that makes your tongue feel strange. The air itself is thick, heavy, clinging to your coat like a wet shroud spun from industrial grime. You pull your collar higher, tightening it around your neck, but it does little to stem the invading chill or the strange, biting quality of the atmosphere. Visibility is poor, even for a London morning notorious for its gloom. The gas lamps, usually a comforting haze against the dark, now seem to struggle, their sickly yellow light barely penetrating the swirling gray, casting elongated, distorted shadows that dance with an unsettling life of their own. You begin your hurried walk, head down, trying to avoid breathing too deeply or taking in the worst of the swirling vapor. With each shallow breath, that odd taste sharpens, growing more pronounced, now accompanied by a subtle, insistent burning in your nostrils. Your eyes begin to water, not from the cold, but from an irritation that prickles behind your eyelids, making you blink repeatedly. A cough builds in your chest, deep and dry, a rasping sound that feels alien, not quite your own, forcing its way out before you can suppress it. Around you, other figures emerge from the dense gloom, fleeting apparitions in the choking air. You see a costermonger, his face obscured by a thick, dark scarf pulled high, but his shoulders are hunched, a sudden, violent spasm of coughing racking his entire frame, making him stumble. A woman hurries past, clutching a handkerchief to her mouth, pulling her shawl even tighter over her face, her gaze darting, wide with an unspoken unease that mirrors your own growing fear. No one speaks. The usual street cries are muted, yet a palpable tension hangs in the air, heavier than the fog itself. Everyone seems to be fighting this invisible enemy, this creeping sensation that settles deep within your lungs. It's an unspoken, horrifying understanding. This isn't just London fog. This isn't the familiar, sooty embrace of the city's industry. This is something else entirely. Something that tastes like a warning. A silent, insidious promise whispered on the wind. A chemical whisper. You feel a tightness in your chest now. A dull ache that wasn't there mere minutes ago, steadily intensifying. The city, usually a symphony of shouts and clatter, is muffled, subdued, as if the entire metropolis is holding its breath, waiting. You realize, with a chilling certainty that sends a shiver down your spine despite the cold, that you're not just walking through a thick morning mist. You're breathing it in, deeply, irrevocably. And it's breathing you in too, consuming you from the inside. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? You continue to push through the increasingly dense air, each step feeling heavier than the last. That metallic tang, the acrid bite at the back of your throat, has sharpened, now a constant presence, making your head throb with a dull ache. But it's the light, or the devastating lack of it, that truly begins to unsettle you. The morning, which should be gaining strength, is instead retreating, swallowed by an encroaching gloom that feels utterly unnatural. You glance up, instinctively seeking the sun, but where it should be, a vast, oppressive canvas of bruised gray hangs low, suffocating the city. It's barely past 11 in the morning, yet the sky looks like deep dusk, maybe even night, trapped in an eternal, murky twilight. The gas lamps, already struggling, are now almost entirely useless, their weak flames barely shimmering through the ever-thickening haze, creating an illusion of depth where there is only impenetrable murk. The outlines of buildings just across the narrow street, hazy moments ago, now completely disappear. Absorbed into the featureless, swirling vapor, you stretch out a hand, almost expecting to touch a solid wall of the stuff. A profound disorientation takes hold. You know this street, every bend and turn, yet now you feel adrift, utterly lost in a landscape that has become formless and hostile. Your lungs burn with a deep, persistent fire, a sensation far beyond the irritating cough of before. It's a tightening, a clenching, as if an invisible hand is squeezing the very breath from your body. You gasp, trying to pull in more air. But each inhale brings with it more of that sickening taste, more of the prickling burn, and a dizzying wave that threatens to buckle your knees. Around you, the muffled sounds of the street start to give way to another kind of noise, a rising murmur of distress. A newsboy, usually so boisterous, is bent double, coughing violently, his papers scattered, completely forgotten. You see a carriage driver, face pale and strained, pulling his horse to a halt, the animal itself snorting, agitated, its eyes wide and rolling in the unnatural darkness. People collide, not out of clumsiness, but because they simply cannot see. You hear low cries of confusion, fragments of worried exclamations, but no one seems to know what to do, where to go. The panic isn't overt, not yet, but it simmers, a collective dread tightening its grip. The sense of isolation is profound. Even amidst the crowds, you are alone, battling the oppressive gloom and the invisible assailant in your lungs. The city, usually a beacon of human activity, has been reduced to a gasping, struggling organism, its lifeblood choked by an invading shadow that stole the sun from the midday sky. You realize that light, that fundamental reassurance of existence, can be just as fragile as breath. How terrifying it is when the very definition of day can be stolen, leaving you to fumble in a man-made night, blind and vulnerable, with only the metallic taste of an unknown enemy to guide you. The darkness isn't just profound now. It's absolute. A heavy, suffocating blanket pulled tight over the city. You stretch your hands out in front of you, fingers splayed, trying to find anything solid, any anchor in this suddenly formless world. The metallic taste in your mouth has become a sickly coating on your tongue, a constant reminder of the unseen invader you're now navigating through. Each breath is a shallow, painful gasp, the burning in your chest a relentless, searing fire. You shuffle forward, one foot dragging behind the other, your boots scuffing against unseen cobblestones that feel unnervingly slick. It's a slow, terrifying ballet of desperation. Your fingertips brush against something cold and rough. Brick. You cling to it, letting the rough texture guide you, moving along the unseen wall, your other hand still outstretched, waving uselessly in the impenetrable gray. The familiar sounds of London, the distant rumble of carriages, the clatter of commerce, are now muted, swallowed by the oppressive vapor, replaced by a chorus of hacking coughs that echo eerily, a shared symphony of distress that makes your own lungs ache in sympathy. Suddenly you collide with something soft yet solid. You recoil, stumbling, your heart hammering against your ribs. A grunt, a muffled curse, then the unmistakable sound of someone else falling to their knees, followed by a wheezing gasp. You can't see them, can't offer aid, can't even tell if they're a man or a woman, just another struggling shape lost in this same blind torment. The incident leaves you trembling, the fear of falling yourself, of being trampled, or simply dissolving into this void, a cold knot in your stomach. Your head spins. The effort of simply moving, of trying to breathe, of fighting the rising nausea, is draining you. You feel sweat prickling on your forehead, cold and clammy, despite the chill seeping through your clothes. You tighten your grip on the wall, your knuckles white, trying to discern even the faintest shimmer of light. But there is nothing. Only the heavy, tangible gloom pressing in, stealing every shred of direction. Panic begins to set in, a visceral, primal fear that makes your chest feel even tighter. You know the way home. You walk these streets every day, but now, stripped of sight, stripped of clear air, every turn feels like a leap into an abyss. You hear distant, faint shouts now, more urgent than before, perhaps someone calling for help, or just calling out into the void, trying to find another voice. You hear the sharp crack of breaking wood nearby, followed by a startled whinny of a horse and the confused shouts of a driver. The sounds chillingly close, yet entirely unseen. You continue to grope, to stumble, your body now screaming for respite, your mind reeling. Every nerve ending is alive, hyper-alert to touch and sound, desperately trying to compensate for the lost vision. The relentless irritation in your eyes burns, making them water uncontrollably, but there's nothing to see, even if they were clear. It makes you understand with a terrifying clarity how much of our existence relies on the simplest things: a clear pathway, a steady breath, the guiding light of day, and how utterly vulnerable you become when those foundations are stolen, leaving you to navigate a world that has become a hostile, choking void, where even the journey home becomes an unimaginable odyssey. That acrid, metallic taste is a constant companion now, coating your entire mouth, making your tongue feel thick and unresponsive. But as you push forward, blindly navigating the suffocating darkness, a new layer of dread begins to press in. It's the sounds, or rather, the distorted, muffled echo of sounds that truly start to unravel your composure. The familiar hum of London, already muted, has given way to a strange, unsettling symphony of distress. You hear it building, a chorus of hacking coughs closer and more insistent now, some wet and rattling, others sharp and dry, tearing through the impenetrable gloom. They intertwine with gasps for air, shallow and desperate, a soundtrack of struggle that makes the burning in your own lungs feel even more intense, more shared. You stumble over something unseen, perhaps a discarded crate or a fallen pedestrian, regaining your balance with a sharp jolt. From just ahead, you hear a sudden sharp cry, quickly stifled, as if swallowed by the thick air itself, followed by the clatter of something heavy hitting the cobblestones. Then a low, sustained groan. You can't tell what happened or who, but the sound paints a vivid picture of collision and pain, making your skin prickle with cold dread. People are moving with frantic desperation, their unseen footsteps shuffling and scraping with an unnerving urgency. You can sense their proximity, almost feel their panicked energy radiating through the choking air. There are confused murmurs, desperate attempts at communication, but the words are torn, fragmented, indistinct, like voices shouting from behind a heavy curtain. The thick vapor absorbs and distorts, transforming clear cries into guttural sounds of fear and confusion. A wave of movement rushes past you, almost knocking you off your feet. You brace yourself against the unseen wall, listening to the hurried thuds, the ragged breaths, the rising pitch of stifled cries. It's a collective panic, palpable and spreading, yet each person is isolated within their own personal blinding fog. You can't see the expressions of terror on their faces, but you can feel it in the frantic rhythm of their unseen movements, in the ragged timbre of their choked sounds. The metallic tang in your mouth grows stronger, accompanied by a dull, aching pressure behind your eyes. Your stomach clenches, a sickening churn that threatens to overwhelm you. The constant strain of trying to breathe, of trying to see, of simply existing in this poisoned, sightless world is utterly exhausting. You lean against the cold, unseen brick, pressing your forehead against its rough surface, trying to steady your racing heart, trying to make sense of the muffled symphony of rising terror. It's a chilling realization. How much louder fear becomes when amplified by the unknown, when stripped of the comfort of sight, when all you have left is the garbled, distorted soundtrack of a city losing its breath in the dark. And how truly terrifying it is to be a part of such a chorus, yet utterly alone in its embrace. The metallic taste in your mouth has moved beyond just your tongue. It's a profound chemical chill that has seeped into your very bloodstream, a cold, bitter current flowing beneath your skin, making every vein feel strangely alive. Your muscles, already heavy with exertion, now throb with an unfamiliar ache, a deep, pervasive weakness that starts in your core and spreads outward to your fingertips and toes. You lean against what you hope is a solid wall, the rough brick pressing uncomfortably into your shoulder, but you cling to it as if it's the only thing tethering you to this world. Your legs tremble uncontrollably, threatening to give out beneath you. Each movement, even just shifting your weight, feels like an immense, draining effort, as if your limbs have suddenly become filled with lead. The air, thick and poisoned, no longer just irritates your lungs. It feels like it's actively rejecting them, refusing to offer the life-giving oxygen you so desperately crave. Your chest burns, not just with a superficial irritation, but with a deep, searing inferno, an inferno that seems to be consuming you from the inside out. Your vision, already stolen by the gas, is now further compromised by a dizzying sensation, a swirling darkness behind your eyelids that persists even when your eyes are open. Your head throbs, a relentless drumbeat that mirrors the frantic rhythm of your struggling heart. A profound nausea rolls through you, an insistent wave that makes you gag, leaving you weak and gasping, bent double against the wall. Around you, the muffled cries of the city have taken on a new, more desperate edge, but their urgency feels distant, filtered through a veil of your own internal suffering. You are no longer navigating the streets. You are navigating the treacherous landscape of your own failing body. You try to focus to remember where you're going, but your thoughts are fragmented like broken glass, scattering before you can grasp them. A cold sweat breaks out on your brow, chilling your skin, yet your entire body feels overheated, feverish. You press your palm flat against your chest, feeling the ragged beat beneath, the desperate flutter that seems to cry out for help. This enemy isn't just outside, obscuring your path. It has breached the walls, invaded the very sanctuary of your being. It's a silent, insidious war waging within, turning your own body against you. You are being consumed, steadily, painfully, by the very air you breathe. It makes you realize, with a chilling dread, how truly fragile the human form can be, how quickly it can be reduced to a vessel of pain and confusion when its most fundamental needs are perverted. You are a prisoner in your own skin, battling an enemy that has made its home inside you, leaving you to wonder if the escape from the fog outside will ever truly mean escape from the poison within. You finally stumble through your own door, the heavy wood slamming shut behind you with a sound that's strangely muted, swallowed by the unnatural quiet that has infiltrated even your home. The relief, a fleeting ghost, is instantly overshadowed by a fresh wave of that gnawing metallic taste. It clings to your mouth, a tenacious reminder of the air you've just fought through, and even now, indoors, it refuses to dissipate, a chemical ghost on your tongue. Your head pounds, a relentless rhythm of dull aches behind your eyes, and every shallow breath still brings a searing burn to your throat. Driven by a desperate craving for something clean, something normal, you move with leaden steps towards the small kitchen. You reach for the kettle, your fingers fumbling slightly, the simple act feeling like an immense task. You pour water, watching the familiar steam rise, hoping its warmth might somehow cleanse the bitterness from your mouth. You find your favorite chipped teacup, the one with the faded floral pattern, and carefully pour the dark, comforting liquid. The aroma of the tea, usually so grounding, is faint, struggling against the pervasive, acrid scent that has followed you inside, making the entire room feel stale and oppressive. You lift the cup, bringing it slowly to your lips, the warmth a small promise of solace. But just as the rim touches your skin, you see it. Floating on the surface of the dark tea, a fine, almost imperceptible film, like a layer of gray dust, swirling gently with the steam. It's not just tea leaves. It's a delicate, gritty residue, clinging to the inside of the cup, a miniature, swirling cloud of the very same grime that chokes the streets outside. The sudden realization is like a punch to the gut. The tea, meant to be a refuge, is tainted. Your hand trembles, and you lower the cup without drinking. The thought of that gritty film, of that insidious dust, entering your body with something meant to soothe, is profoundly sickening. You glance around the small room. A thin, gray layer seems to coat the mantelpiece, dulling the familiar gleam of polished wood. Even the window pane, usually a clear portal to the outside world, is blurred not just by the gas beyond, but by a fine, settled dust on the asterisk inside surface. It's everywhere. You feel a profound sense of violation, a chilling understanding that the poisoned air hasn't just remained outside. It has seeped through the cracks, under the doors, through every unseen crevice, tainting even the most intimate and personal spaces. This isn't a shelter anymore. It's just another chamber where the enemy breathes, where the unseen invader has made itself at home, settling onto every surface, into every breath. It makes you truly grasp the helplessness of it all, doesn't it? How when the very air you breathe becomes a weapon, there is no real sanctuary. No matter how many doors you close, no matter how much tea you brew, the world has irrevocably changed, and the grime, the poison, has become an unwelcome permanent guest in every corner of your life. The heavy metallic taste in your mouth is no longer a surprise. It's a constant sickening companion, sharp and persistent. But here, down by the docks, it mingles with the raw, briny scent of the Thames, the faint oil-slick smell of the water, and the damp, earthy odor of cargo. The air is thick, not just with the choking gas, but with a profound, pervasive wetness that clings to your clothes, chilling you to the bone. You reach for the coarse rope of a cargo net, your calloused fingers fumbling slightly in the gloom. The thick hemp, usually familiar, feels strangely slick, clammy with the pervasive moisture. You try to haul, to put your weight into it, but the weight of the sack within the net feels unstable, unpredictable, shifting with a terrifying looseness that wasn't there before. Your back protests, a familiar ache, but now it's compounded by the pervasive dizziness and the relentless burning in your lungs, making every heave a monumental struggle. Your vision is utterly useless. The usual bustling panorama of masts, cranes, and towering warehouses has vanished, swallowed by the impenetrable gray. The river, a dark, hungry maw, lies just inches from your feet, its cold, oily smell rising through the gas, a constant, chilling reminder of the fall that could be fatal. You hear the mournful groan of unseen ship timbers, the faint, disembodied clang of a bell buoy, each sound amplified and distorted. Like ghosts whispering secrets from the heart of the fog, you push forward, guiding a heavy trolley, its iron wheels groaning on the cobblestones. You can only move by instinct, by the ingrained memory of your feet on this uneven ground, by the faint, rough touch of the warehouse wall to your right. A shadow looms ahead, resolves itself into another dock worker, his face obscured by a thick, wet cloth, but the sheer desperation in his eyes, even through the murk, is unmistakable. He stumbles, a deep, racking cough tearing from his chest, doubling him over, his hands braced on his knees, before he pushes on, a silent, grim acknowledgement of the shared misery. The usual shouts and commands of the foreman are gone, replaced by frustrated grunts, the scrape of unseen boots, and the occasional, sharp cry of alarm as someone loses their footing or bumps into an invisible obstacle. The sense of coordinated effort, the rhythmic pulse of the docks, has evaporated, replaced by a chaotic, isolated struggle. Every movement is hesitant, fraught with danger. The gangplank to the brig, usually a sturdy, clear path, is now just a treacherous unknown, its slippery surface hidden, waiting. You realize, with a heavy, crushing clarity, how much of your world, your livelihood, your very sense of purpose, relies on the ability to simply see, to navigate, and how terrifying it is when that world, so solid and dependable, simply dissolves into a choking, poisonous void, leaving you to fight a battle of inches against an unseen enemy, where even your own footsteps feel like a gamble. The air here, by the river, is a brutal cocktail. That metallic, acrid taste still clings to your mouth, but now it's overlaid with the heavy, briny scent of the Thames, a profound, oily dampness that feels like it's seeping into your very bones. The cold that radiates from the unseen water is distinct, an icy grasp that cuts through your heavy coat, leaving your skin prickling and your muscles aching with a new, deeper chill. You heft another heavy sack, its rough canvas scraping against your shoulder. The effort makes your lungs burn, a raw, insistent fire that feels like it's searing your windpipe with every shallow gasp. Your vision is still gone, swallowed by the thick gray maw of the gas. But here, the constant, menacing slosh and gurgle of the unseen river is a terrifying soundtrack. It's close. You can feel its vast, dark presence just beyond the edge of the dock, a hungry beast waiting to swallow anything that stumbles. Your boots, heavy with the day's grime, feel slick on the wet cobblestones. Each step is a deliberate, agonizing gamble. You shuffle forward, your left hand extended, fingers brushing against the cold, slimy timber of the dock's edge, a chilling reminder of the precipice inches from your feet. The planks creak underfoot, an unsettling symphony that makes your heart hammer against your ribs. The weight of the sack pulls at you, threatening to throw you off balance, to drag you over the edge into the black, polluted depths you can only hear, only smell. From somewhere to your left, a muffled splash rips through the gas. It's followed by a choked cry, quickly swallowed by the air and the hungry lapping of the river. You freeze, straining to hear more, but there's only the sound of someone thrashing briefly, then a sickening, prolonged silence, heavier than the gas itself. Your blood runs cold. You can feel the eyes of other dock workers, unseen but present, darting in the direction of the sound, a shared, silent horror passing between you all. No one speaks. No one moves towards the sound. What could they do in this blindness? Your head spins with dizziness, a relentless pressure behind your eyes. Your stomach churns, threatening to revolt. The sheer terror of the unseen fall, of the cold, murky water, of the vast, indifferent river pushes against your chest, making it even harder to breathe. You feel a pull, an almost magnetic draw towards that invisible edge, the weight of the sack, the weight of the gas, the weight of the unseen river, all conspiring against your fragile balance. It makes you understand, with a gut-wrenching certainty, how utterly insignificant you are against the power of nature, especially when it's veiled, distorted, and rendered lethally invisible. How easily a familiar working day can become a fight for survival against a landscape that has become a predator, where the ground beneath your feet is as treacherous as the abyss itself. That persistent metallic tang in your mouth has become a dull throb, a steady, unpleasant hum against the inside of your cheeks, a background track to the frantic symphony of what little you can now truly perceive. Your eyes, useless behind their burning, watering lids, have ceded all control. You strain your ears, listening, trying to piece together a coherent map from the broken shards of sound that penetrate the thick, choking gas. You take another shallow, painful breath, the burning in your lungs a constant, searing reminder of the air you're forced to consume. You shuffle forward, your footfalls on the slick cobblestones barely audible to yourself, let alone anyone else. A faint, dull clatter reaches you from somewhere ahead. Was it a horse-drawn cart? A potential lifeline of transport in this paralyzed city? Or merely a loose barrel rolling down an unseen alley? You pivot your head, trying to triangulate its position, but the gas distorts everything, twisting the echoes, making it impossible to judge distance or direction. The sound seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, a cruel whisper in the suffocating void. Your heart pounds, not just from the poisoned air and the physical exertion, but from the sheer terror of misinterpreting a sound that could mean safety, or worse, unseen danger. Was that a warning shout from a fellow pedestrian, or just another choked cough swallowed by the oppressive vapor? The gas itself seems to muffle and then amplify, playing tricks on your perception, making faint innocuous sounds loom large, and urgent calls disappear into the impenetrable gray. You hear the distinct, rhythmic tap-tap-tap of a blind man's cane. Closer now. You focus on it, a beacon of a sort, trying to follow the sound, instinctively feeling that someone so reliant on hearing might navigate this horror better than you. You adjust your pace, trying to match his unseen rhythm, a ghostly procession of shared vulnerability. But then, the taps grow erratic, stumble, and a low, guttural cry breaks through the gloom, followed by the clatter of the cane on stone. Your heart leaps into your throat. Did he fall? Into what? You want to call out, to help, but the words catch in your burning throat, and the fear of stumbling into the same unseen peril holds you rooted, paralyzed by the unknown. The muffled symphony of the city is now a cruel, fragmented cacophony of distress. The distant, desperate bray of a donkey, the unsettling creak of unseen church bells swaying in the heavy air, The low, almost sub-audible moans that seem to rise from the very ground beneath your feet. Each sound is a piece of a puzzle you can't assemble, each a potential clue to your survival, yet each one is filtered through a gauze of panic and physical pain, making discernment almost impossible. You move with a sickening blend of urgency and profound caution, your ears stretched taut, trying to decode the language of a dying city. It makes you realize, doesn't it, how utterly dependent we are on the clarity of our senses, and how quickly the mind can turn traitor when fear distorts the very information it needs to survive. How the world, once a symphony of clear signals, can become a terrifying, deceptive echo chamber, where every sound is a question mark, and every silent moment an even greater threat. You are still pushing through the heavy, poisoned air, that bitter metallic taste a permanent resident on your tongue, a reminder of the insidious enemy you're fighting. The burn in your lungs is constant, now a deep, dull ache. Your foot catches and you stumble hard, your shoulder slamming into something unyielding and cold. It's an iron wheel. Another one. You've hit a standstill, a dead end in the pervasive gloom. You reach out, your fingers brushing against the cold, wet flank of a horse, its breath snorting hot and ragged against your palm. The animal is agitated, shifting restlessly, but it's not moving forward. Its harness is tangled with another, the traces limp. You can feel the cold, damp wood of a wagon body pressed against the side of another, a massive, unmoving blockade. The arteries of London, the very streets meant to pulse with life and commerce, have seized up, choked by the gas, transformed into impassable labyrinths of stalled traffic. The air thickens further here, saturated with the frantic, terrified neighs of horses, the desperate, guttural grunts of their drivers. You can hear their frustrated attempts to untangle the chaos. The sharp, futile crack of a whip, quickly followed by a rasping cough. From the unseen jumble of wagons, you hear the distant, urgent cries of people, voices laced with fear and a building impatience, all trapped in this immobile, choking bottleneck. The gas distorts the sounds, making them echo strangely, like a chorus of lost souls. You try to find a way around, your hand gliding along the side of the bogged-down wagon. The wood is slick with moisture, a thin layer of grime coating its surface. You pull your hand back, a shiver running through you. The space between the wagons and the unseen buildings is almost non-existent, a claustrophobic tunnel of cold iron and damp wood. Every breath is a struggle, each shallow inhale a fresh insult to your burning lungs. Your head pounds, a rhythmic, nauseating beat. You lean against the wagon, feeling the vibration of a horse's uneasy shift. You sense other bodies nearby, pressing in, equally trapped, equally desperate for movement, for escape from this suffocating stasis. You can almost feel their collective frustration, their rising panic, a tangible presence in the thick, toxic air. The silence between the coughs and desperate movements is more terrifying than the noise, a void swallowing hope. You realize with a heavy heart how fragile a city truly is, how its intricate dance of movement, its very lifeblood, can be brought to a shuddering, painful halt by something as invisible and insidious as a poison in the air. The city isn't just breathing a toxic brew, it's suffocating, its heart slowing, its vital connections severing one by one, leaving everyone trapped in its dying embrace. You push through the heavy hospital doors, not seeking entry, but rather stumbling in, drawn by a desperate, primal urge for refuge from the choking streets. The air inside hits you with a strange, unsettling mixture. The sharp, metallic tang of the gas, now intensely concentrated, battling with the sterile, yet somehow sickly, scent of antiseptic and stale sweat. It's a sensory assault, a chilling promise that even here, within these supposedly healing walls, The outside world's poison has found its way. Your already burning lungs protest violently, each shallow breath a ragged, tearing sound in your own ears. The metallic taste in your mouth is no longer just a flavor. It's a physical sensation, coating your throat, making it feel raw and constricted. You struggle to keep your balance, your vision still utterly useless in the pervasive gloom. The gaslight from the high windows, usually a soft, reassuring glow, is now a sickly yellow smear, barely cutting through the dense, gray haze that hangs like a malevolent cloud inside the long, narrow ward. And then, the sounds hit you. It's not just a collection of individual coughs. It's a living, breathing chorus of suffering, amplified by the high ceilings and narrow corridors. A symphony of rasping, hacking coughs, each one tearing at the silence, followed by desperate, wheezing gasps for air. You hear the wet, gurgling sounds of deep chest congestion, the low, persistent groans of patients, the muffled, stifled cries of children that pierce the cacophony with a particular, heartbreaking intensity. It's a soundscape of collective agony, each breath a struggle, each cough a testament to the invading enemy. You feel your way along a cold, unyielding wall, your hand brushing against a rough, starched uniform. A nurse, her face pale and drawn even through the dim gas, moves with a weary urgency, her footsteps almost silent beneath the heavy blanket of sound. She glances at you, her eyes wide with a shared, silent despair, before disappearing into the haze, carrying a basin that clatters with an unnerving hollow ring. You stumble further into the ward, your legs feeling like lead, the sheer volume of human suffering pressing in on you. You sense rows of cots, unseen figures writhing or lying terribly still beneath thin blankets. The air feels heavy, not just with the gas, but with the despair and the collective struggle for life. Here, in the supposed haven of healing, the illness is not just present. It is overwhelming, suffocating, turning the very act of breathing into a testament to pain. The antiseptic, meant to cleanse, seems futile against the pervasive, bitter taste of the lethal air. It makes you truly feel the terror of a world turned against its own, doesn't it? How a place built for solace and recovery can become just another chamber where the poisoned air reigns supreme, amplifying every symptom, every fear, until hope itself struggles for breath in a suffocating chorus of despair. The sharp, clean scent of carbolic acid usually dominates a hospital, a harsh but reassuring promise of sanitation. But here, in this dimly lit examination room, it battles a losing war against that familiar, insidious metallic tang of the gas. A smell now so ingrained, it feels like it's emanating from your own skin. The air itself feels heavy, thick, with both the pervasive poison and the desperate, clinical aroma of illness. You watch the doctor, his face drawn and pale beneath the weak gaslight that barely cuts through the room's haze. His hands, gloved and moving with an almost frantic precision, press a stethoscope to a patient's chest. The sound he hears, or doesn't hear, seems to register deeply. You can almost feel the tremor in his grip, the subtle clenching of his jaw as he listens, his brow furrowed with an exhaustion that goes beyond mere sleeplessness. Every few seconds a dry, tearing cough racks his own frame, forcing him to momentarily pull away, to fight for his own breath before returning to his grim task. The patient beneath his touch, a woman, lies still, her skin an unnatural, ashen gray. Her shallow, wheezing breaths whistle in the room, a harrowing sound that makes your own lungs ache in sympathetic protest, remembering the raw burn that still lingers in your throat. The doctor adjusts her thin blanket, a gesture of futile comfort, his eyes, red-rimmed and bloodshot, scanning her face, searching for a sign, any sign, of improvement, of hope. There is none. Only the grim reality of an enemy that has breached every defense, poisoned every vital organ. You see the medical instruments laid out on a small, cluttered table, vials, bandages, a small lamp. They look sterile, pristine, yet you can't shake the feeling that even they are coated with an invisible film of the lethal air, rendered almost useless against an affliction without a name, without a known cure. The doctor picks up a syringe, hesitates, then slowly lowers it, his shoulders slumping slightly. It's a silent confession of impotence, a stark admission that all his knowledge, all his skill, is simply not enough. Another nurse rushes past the half-open door, her footsteps heavy, her face a mask of weary despair. You hear the muffled cries of children from another ward, the persistent, rattling coughs, a grim chorus of the sick and the dying that permeates the very walls of this place. The doctor closes his eyes for a brief moment, a fleeting gesture of profound weariness, before opening them again, his gaze hardening with a desperate resolve to continue his war against the air itself. He moves to the next patient, his steps heavy, his head down, but still moving. It makes you truly understand, doesn't it, the profound limits of human endeavor, when faced with an enemy so pervasive, so fundamental, that it turns the very source of life into an instrument of death. How even the most dedicated healer can be reduced to a witness, fighting a battle that feels utterly unwinnable against an unseen assailant that chokes the very breath out of a city. The rank, earthy smell of Smithfield Market, usually a robust mix of animal, straw, and lingering blood, is now utterly overwhelmed by that familiar, sickening metallic tang of the gas. You push deeper into the market's heart, each breath a raw, tearing sensation in your chest. But it's the animals that truly make your stomach clench with a fresh wave of dread. Their distress is palpable, a thick, desperate texture added to the poisoned air. A massive bull, usually defiant and formidable, stands hunched near an unseen stall, its immense chest heaving with desperate, rattling breaths. A thick, greenish mucus coats its nostrils, and its eyes, wide and bloodshot, roll blindly in the opaque gloom, a terrifying mirror of your own struggle for air. You can almost feel the tremors shaking its powerful frame as it lets out a low, guttural moan, a sound stripped of its usual power, reduced to pure suffering. The raw, desperate sound sends a shiver down your spine. You hear the frantic bleating of unseen sheep, a pathetic chorus of fear and confusion that echoes through the choking air. Their movements are erratic, a shuffling, panicked dance as they butt into unseen obstacles, their soft wool coats feeling strangely damp as you brush past them. A drover, his face red and streaming with tears from the gas, pulls at a halter, urging a hog forward, but the beast digs its hooves in, snorting violently, refusing to move, struggling for air. Its pink hide, usually vibrant, appears mottled and gray in the pervasive murk, an unsettling testament to the gas's pervasive reach. The air here is even heavier, a suffocating blanket woven from the noxious gas and the concentrated panic of hundreds of trapped creatures. The metallic taste in your mouth is sharper, more bitter, as if reflecting the universal agony around you. Your head throbs, a relentless, dull pain that makes every thought feel sluggish. You see an animal handler slumped against a pen, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent, racking coughs, utterly defeated by the helplessness of the situation. He doesn't even bother to look up as you pass. The usual cacophony of the market, the shouts of vendors, the haggling, the sharp crack of sticks, is gone, replaced by this mournful, animal symphony of labored breathing, distressed cries, and the occasional sickening thud of a collapsing body. The gas, the unseen enemy, is indiscriminate, striking down man and beast alike, making even the strongest creatures succumb to its invisible chokehold. It makes you feel, doesn't it, the profound, interconnected vulnerability of all living things. How when the very air turns hostile, every breath becomes a battle, and the suffering knows no species, no hierarchy, reducing all to the same desperate, gasping struggle against an enemy that chokes the life out of everything it touches. That bitter metallic taste has become so ingrained in your mouth it almost feels like a part of you now, a constant, unpleasant companion. But as you stumble through the heavy, suffocating air, another sensation begins to press in, chilling you more profoundly than the raw cold seeping through your coat. It's a sound that isn't there. You halt, leaning against a lamppost that feels unnaturally cold and slick with dampness. Your lungs burn, a deep, persistent ache with every shallow, ragged breath. Your eyes, still watering and useless in the pervasive gloom, strain against the thick, gray murk, but find no anchor. Yet, it's the profound, unnatural quiet that truly unnerves you. Where are they? The sparrows. Every day, every hour, in every corner of London, their chirping, their frantic scuttling, their sudden flutter of wings against brick and soot is a constant, familiar backdrop. They are the city's tiny, resilient heartbeat. But now, nothing. Only the muffled, distant wails of a dog, quickly fading, and the relentless, rasping coughs that seem to come from every direction and none. The air, heavy with the gas, feels like it has swallowed sound itself, particularly the small, fragile sounds of life. You instinctively look up, though you can see nothing beyond the dense, toxic veil. You imagine the usual ledges, the windowsills, the narrow gaps in the eaves where they build their nests, often so close you can hear their tiny chirps from your own window. Now there is only an eerie, suffocating silence where that busy, insistent chatter should be. The absence is deafening, a stark, terrifying void in the urban soundscape. A shiver, not from the cold, runs down your spine. If the gas can silence the ubiquitous sparrows, those tenacious, streetwise creatures that thrive in the city's grime and bustle, what hope do any of you have? The thought is a cold, hard knot in your stomach. The metallic taste in your mouth seems to intensify, a sharp, coppery tang that bites at your tongue, as if the silence itself has a flavor. You feel a profound sense of isolation, not just from the human world, but from the natural world that usually weaves itself so resiliently through London's tough fabric. The gas isn't just a threat to man. It's a silent, indiscriminate reaper, stealing the very essence of life, even from the smallest, most overlooked corners. It makes you realize, with a chilling clarity, how much we take for granted the delicate balance of life, the quiet chorus of the world around us, and how truly terrifying it is when that background hum of existence, so fundamental it's often unnoticed, suddenly vanishes, leaving behind only the cold, hard proof of an insidious, all-consuming threat. The persistent metallic taste in your mouth has become a dull, nagging ache. But it's the high-pitched sound that momentarily cuts through your suffering. From somewhere ahead, muffled by the pervasive gloom, you hear giggling, faint and childlike, followed by a hushed whisper, "Ready or not." Your lungs burn with a persistent fire, yet a strange curiosity compels you forward, drawn by the fragile sound of innocence in this poisoned city. You stumble through the gray, opaque curtain, your hand instinctively reaching out, and your fingers brush against something small, soft, and warm, a child's arm. The child shrieks not in fear, but in surprised delight, mistaking your unseen presence for another playmate. A moment later, a round of tiny, breathless coughs erupts from the gloom, quickly followed by another, then another, a small, suffocating chorus, that makes your own chest tighten in sympathy. You can sense them now, several small figures, darting and stumbling in the heavy air, their movements erratic, no longer playful, but disoriented. Their laughter, already thin, is now punctuated by wet, rattling coughs, their tiny bodies shaking with the effort. One child collides softly with your leg, a little hand grabbing your coat, instinctively seeking balance. You can feel the quick, shallow rise and fall of their chest against your side, the warmth of a face pressed briefly into your coat, before they pull away, lost again in the pervasive murk. The metallic tang on your tongue seems to sharpen, reflecting the vulnerability you feel around these small, gasping figures. Their eyes, though unseen in the dense haze you know must be streaming, just like your own, irritated raw by the acrid air. You hear the pitiful sound of a child sniffing, a wet, struggling intake of breath, followed by a stifled sob that quickly turns into a desperate wheeze. This isn't hide and seek anymore. This is a cruel, involuntary game of evasion, with an unseen, deadly enemy, played by the most vulnerable among you. You can faintly make out the shape of an older woman, perhaps a mother or nanny, her figure stooped, her arms outstretched, her voice a low, despairing murmur as she tries to gather the scattered children, her own coughs punctuating her efforts. She moves with a terrifying slowness, utterly helpless, her face, though unseen, undoubtedly etched with profound terror. The gas isn't just stealing vision, it's stealing childhood, twisting the simple joy of play into a struggle for survival. It makes you understand, doesn't it, the unique horror of watching innocence become a casualty, of witnessing the purest forms of joy and play choked by an invisible, indiscriminate poison. How the gas doesn't just steal breath, but also the laughter, the carefree spirit, and the very future of those who are least equipped to fight. That metallic taste in your mouth is no longer just a taste. It's a coarse, gritty texture that has settled on your tongue. You lick your lips, and it's there, unmistakable. A fine, almost imperceptible powder, like ash or incredibly fine grit, clinging to the roof of your mouth, making your tongue feel rough, as if you've been chewing on dust and copper filings. It feels like the very air has solidified, turning into a bitter, tangible particulate that you are forced to swallow with every painful breath. You try to clear your throat, a small, desperate scrape that does nothing to dislodge the pervasive grittiness. Instead, it seems to push the sensation deeper, mixing with the raw burn in your lungs, intensifying the nausea that churns in your gut. Your teeth feel strangely fuzzy, coated in this same fine, sooty film, and the desire for a simple, clean drink of water becomes an almost unbearable craving, a desperate fantasy in this poisoned landscape. You push your way through the unchanging, opaque gray, your coat catching on something unseen, a rough wooden edge. The gloom feels thicker than ever, no longer just a visual obscuration, but a physical presence, a tangible weight pressing against your face, making your skin feel dry and tight. It's as if the very air itself is exfoliating you with its poisonous grit. Each shallow inhale brings more of this particulate into your mouth, into your throat, a constant, insidious invasion that feels deeply violating. You hear a child, just ahead, give a small, wheezing cough, followed by a wet, struggling sound. You instinctively wipe your own tongue with the back of your gloved hand, trying to scrape away the grit, but it's futile. The fine powder adheres stubbornly, a permanent reminder of the unseen enemy that has infiltrated your most intimate senses. You look down, though you can see nothing, imagining the same fine gray dust settling on the tiny outstretched hands of children, on the fur of desperate animals, on every surface, everywhere. The gaslight from an unseen window high above casts a distorted, sickly yellow glow, yet it seems to highlight the particulate in the air, swirling like slow motion, malevolent snowflakes, each one a carrier of that acrid taste and gritty texture. They settle on your eyelashes, on your hair, making you feel physically coated, infused with the very essence of the poison. It's not just a fog you're breathing. It's a slowly accumulating, bitter grime. It makes you truly understand, doesn't it, the profound, intimate violation of an environment that can literally enter you, settle on your tongue, coating your very sense of self with its insidious, tangible corruption. How the air, once a source of life, can become a constant, physical reminder of betrayal, a never-ending taste of the slowly encroaching death. That persistent metallic tang in your mouth has dulled to a bitter film, a constant, unpleasant companion. But now it's the shift in the muffled symphony of the city that truly prickles your senses. Your lungs burn, a relentless fire that makes each shallow breath a conscious, painful act. You're pushing through the thick, gray murk, your hand outstretched, when you hear it. Behind you, a faint, irregular shuffle. You freeze, every muscle tensing, your heart hammering a frantic rhythm against your ribs. A drumbeat that feels deafening in the heavy, suffocating air. You strain your ears, trying to pierce the oppressive gloom with sound. The gas distorts everything, making innocent creaks and distant thuds echo like threats. But this is different. This has a rhythm, a human cadence, a boot scuffing, a slight drag, then another. It's too close to be dismissed as the general chaos of the choked streets. You try to slow your breathing, to make yourself smaller, less detectable in the opaque void. Your eyes, useless for seeing, dart back and forth, desperate to catch even the faintest shifting shadow in the pervasive haze. But there's nothing, only the impenetrable gray, pressing in from all sides. The sounds behind you hesitate when you stop, a chilling, almost imperceptible pause, then resume when you tentatively take another shuffling step. It's undeniable. You are being followed. A cold sweat breaks out on your brow, chilling your skin despite the humid, heavy air. The metallic taste in your mouth turns to raw fear, a dry, bitter clenching in your jaw. You can't see who it is, or why. Is it simply another lost soul, desperate for direction, or something far more sinister, emboldened by the city's blindness? The anonymity of the gas, once a strange shield, now feels like a terrifying weapon in the hands of an unseen pursuer. You press yourself against a cold, damp wall, trying to disappear into its rough texture, your ears straining. The footsteps behind you grow slightly louder, then pause again. You hear a soft, wet cough. Closer now, then the continued shuffle. They are closer. Your lungs feel like they're about to burst. Not just from the poison, but from the raw, unadulterated terror of being hunted in a world where sight offers no defense, and every shadow is a potential threat. You try to push forward, but your legs feel like lead, heavy with the growing dread. It makes you understand, doesn't it? The profound, primal fear of being pursued when stripped of your most basic defenses. How even in a city teeming with millions, the absence of sight can turn a crowded street into the most isolating and terrifying of hunting grounds, where every unseen step is a question of survival. The acrid, metallic taste has become a raw abrasion on your tongue, a constant reminder of the poisonous air you're forced to breathe. Your lungs burn, a deep, persistent fire, and the gnawing fear of the unseen footsteps behind you has tightened into a suffocating knot in your stomach. You push through the impenetrable gray, every sense on high alert, desperate for any sign of order, any flicker of authority in this chaotic, gas-choked city. Then you hear it. A distinct, sharp voice, muffled but unmistakable, cutting through the general chorus of coughs and distressed murmurs. "Halt! Who goes there?" It's an officer of the law. Relief, immediate and profound, washes over you, momentarily easing the burning in your chest. You open your mouth to call out, but the words catch in your throat, a dry, painful rasp. You stumble forward, drawn by the sound of the authoritative voice, your hands outstretched, expecting to collide with a solid, reassuring figure. But what you find is another scene of disarray. Two constables, their dark uniforms barely visible as shifting blurs in the thick haze, are struggling. One is bent double, racked by a violent, tearing cough, his helmet askew, his truncheon fallen and forgotten on the wet cobblestones. The other, younger, stands beside him, his gaze wide and unfocused in the perpetual twilight, his hand gripping his own truncheon, but his movements are hesitant, uncertain, clearly disoriented. The "halt" was less a command and more a desperate, reflexive cry into the void, a futile attempt to impose order on a chaos that has stripped them of their own authority. You notice the younger constable's eyes are streaming with tears, his breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps, his face pale and clammy with the same pervasive illness that grips the entire city. The metallic tang in your mouth seems to intensify, reflecting the bitter irony of the situation. The heavy brass buttons on their coats, usually gleaming, are dull, coated in a fine layer of grime, just like everything else. Their traditional reassuring presence, a symbol of stability and control in London's bustling streets, has been utterly undermined by the pervasive, unseen enemy. They are just as blind, just as vulnerable, just as choked by the lethal gas as any common citizen. The law, it seems, wears a blindfold of smog. You watch as the younger officer attempts to guide his coughing colleague, his hand fumbling for his arm, their movements slow and uncertain. They are not chasing the unseen footsteps behind you. They are simply trying to survive, trying to navigate their own disorientation, reduced to figures of desperate struggle rather than formidable protectors. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how fragile the illusion of order truly is, how easily it can crumble when the very fabric of perception is ripped away. When the guardians of the law are blinded, choked, and rendered helpless by an invisible foe, the city itself descends into a terrifying, lawless void, where protection is a fleeting memory, and every citizen is left to fend for themselves against the encompassing darkness. That persistent metallic tang in your mouth has become a grim constant, a bitter coating on your tongue that defies all attempts to dislodge it. But as you push through the increasingly dense air, heading towards what you hope is the familiar expanse of Covent Garden, a different scent fights its way through the chemical bite of the gas. It's the ghost of the market, the lingering sweetness of bruised flowers and overripe fruit, a faint, almost mournful perfume struggling against the overwhelming acridity. Your lungs burn with each shallow, ragged breath, a dull, aching fire that seems to grow more insistent with every step. The gas itself feels thicker here, a palpable, heavy presence that clings to your face, making your skin feel damp and clammy. Ahead, where the grand edifice of the Royal Opera House should loom, there is only a vast, indistinct mass swallowed by the oppressive, gray gloom. The gas lamps, usually illuminating the theater's impressive facade, are reduced to sickly orange blurs, like smudged watercolors in the thick, suffocating air. And then you hear it. Not the vibrant shatter of a bustling square, nor the triumphant swell of an orchestra, but a fractured, ethereal sound. A violin, perhaps, or a lone cello, its notes reaching you in distorted, elongated whispers, as if played from beneath a heavy blanket. The music, meant to be glorious and soaring, is instead thin, mournful, struggling for clarity against the pervasive muffling gas. It's a ghostly opera, a performance being choked even as it attempts to unfold. You can make out figures moving slowly, hesitantly, through the haze. Women in what were once elegant evening gowns, now damp and clinging, their faces pale and streaked with moisture, clutching handkerchiefs to their mouths. Men in top hats and tails, their posture slumped, their usual confident stride replaced by a tentative shuffle, punctuated by deep, tearing coughs. They are patrons of the arts, forced to contend with an invisible assailant that strips all grandeur from the occasion, reducing their anticipation to a shared, gasping struggle. You hear a sudden, sharp cough erupt from within the unseen theater itself, followed by a ripple of suppressed murmurs, a collective acknowledgement of the poison's reach, even into the hallowed halls of culture. The metallic taste intensifies, a bitter counterpoint to the struggling music. Your head throbs, and a wave of profound weariness washes over you, mingling with the chilling realization of what this gas has stolen. It's not just breath or sight. It's the very possibility of beauty, of shared experience, of life's most refined pleasures. The opera house, a sanctuary of art, is now just another chamber where the gas reigns supreme, its music a dying echo in the throat of a suffocating city. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how fragile true beauty and culture can be when pitted against the raw, indifferent power of an unseen, all-encompassing threat. How quickly the most magnificent human creations can be rendered silent, reduced to ghostly echoes, when the very air we breathe becomes an instrument of corrosion, choking the life out of every form of human expression. The heavy, velvet curtain of the Royal Opera House, usually a symbol of grandeur and separation from the outside world, now feels like a flimsy, almost mocking barrier. As you push through its folds, seeking refuge, the air inside hits you with a cruel familiarity. That bitter, metallic tang, the signature of the gas, is not diminished here. Instead, it's intensified, trapped and concentrated, mingling with the lingering scent of stale perfume, polished wood, and the faint, unsettling aroma of fear. Your lungs burn with a deep, persistent fire, each shallow breath a raw scrape that feels like sandpaper in your throat. Your eyes, though shielded from the outdoor gloom, still prickle in water, unable to clear the pervasive haze that hangs in the very air you're forced to inhale. The ornate chandeliers above, usually brilliant, are reduced to sickly, flickering halos, their light barely cutting through the dense, gray murk that permeates even this hallowed space. And the sounds. The once grand foyer, meant for elegant chatter and light footsteps, is filled with a muffled, desperate chorus. You hear the deep, resonant cough of an elderly gentleman, followed by a woman's quick, stifled gasp. Footsteps shuffle with a nervous urgency across the marble floor, no longer purposeful but hesitant, disoriented. You can sense bodies moving past you, unseen, brushing against your coat, their hurried movements betraying a frantic search for clearer air that simply doesn't exist. You move deeper, towards the main hall, hoping for some miraculous pocket of breathable air. The plush velvet seats, meant for comfort, are mostly empty, dark shapes swallowed by the gloom. On a few you can make out slumped figures, their heads bowed, shoulders shaking with silent, racking coughs. The stage, usually alive with color and drama, is a vast, empty void, the backdrop curtain barely visible as a gray, indistinct smudge in the oppressive atmosphere. The orchestra pit is silent and echoing hollow. The music, if it ever began, has long since been choked into submission. The metallic taste in your mouth is now so sharp, so insistent, it makes your stomach churn. You clutch your chest, feeling the frantic, irregular beat of your heart, the constant strain of your burning lungs. Even the plush, expensive carpets beneath your feet feel strangely damp, coated with that fine, insidious grit you've come to dread. The velvet curtain, the sturdy walls, the very grandness of the structure, all of it proved futile against an enemy that simply bypassed physical barriers, infiltrating every nook and cranny. It makes you understand, doesn't it, the profound helplessness of being trapped in a place of supposed sanctuary, only to find that the poison has breached even its most fortified walls. How when the very air turns hostile, even the grandest stages of human endeavor can be rendered useless, silent, and suffocating, turning moments of cultural pride into a desperate, shared struggle for a single, clean breath. That persistent metallic tang in your mouth has escalated. It's no longer a mere flavor. It's a direct, searing assault, a sharp, almost sulfurous chemical bite that immediately prickles the very back of your throat. It feels like biting into something acrid and burning, an unexpected, violent sting that makes your eyes, already streaming and useless in the gloom, clench involuntarily. The air itself seems alive with it, a new, more aggressive chemical presence. Your lungs, which have been burning for hours, now feel raw and scraped, as if lined with fine glass shards. Each shallow breath brings with it a dry, racking cough, a desperate attempt to dislodge the corrosive sensation that has settled deep in your bronchial tubes. You taste it with every gasp, a distinctly pungent, almost acidic undertone beneath the familiar metallic tang, like the residue of spent matches clinging to your palate. It's a bitter, painful reminder that the gas isn't just opaque, it's actively harmful, eating at you from the inside. You press a gloved hand to your exposed cheek, and even through the thick material, you feel a distinct prickling sensation on your skin, a subtle, insistent burning, as if minuscule, invisible needles are gently stinging your face. The sensation crawls across your skin, a chemical irritation that you can almost taste on your lips. It's a new layer of violation, a direct, physical affront beyond mere breathlessness. Around you, the muffled sounds of the street have taken on a harsher edge. You hear more violent, tearing coughs from unseen figures, deeper and more prolonged than before. A woman stumbles past, her movements jerky, her hand pressed not just to her mouth, but to her exposed neck, a clear gesture of pain, of trying to soothe a burning that goes beyond mere irritation. You see, or rather sense, people flinching, recoiling, not just from collisions but from the invisible air itself, as if each breath is a small, agonizing chemical burn. The gas here feels heavier, dense, with this new sulfuric embrace. It's a tangible weight that presses against your face, making your eyes water uncontrollably, not just from irritation, but from a deeper, more insistent sting that feels like pure acid. You can almost feel the air itself corroding your senses, turning your eyes to burning pools, your throat into a raw wound, your very skin into a canvas for its chemical wrath. The city is no longer merely shrouded, it is being actively dissolved by an invisible, insidious force. It makes you understand, with a terrifying, gut-wrenching certainty, that the air itself can become an invisible acid, a corrosive embrace that doesn't just obscure the world, but actively attacks and dismantles the very essence of your being. How terrifying it is when the fundamental element of life becomes a chemical weapon, searing and scarring, turning the simple act of breathing into a battle against an all-consuming sulfuric sting. You lift your hand, fingers splayed, and for a fleeting, terrifying moment you can almost feel its presence, distinct and undeniable. The gas isn't just thin air or simple fog. It has a profound physical substance, a clammy, almost viscous quality that clings to your skin like a damp, unseen cobweb. That bitter, metallic tang, now familiar, seems to coat this physical sensation, making the very air you breathe feel oily and thick. It doesn't hang static. Within its vast, featureless gray expanse, you can sense currents, eddies, swirling pockets of denser air that shift and press against you, like slow-motion phantom limbs brushing your cheek. It's like being inside a slowly churning, suffocating sea, where the very atmosphere has become a living, malevolent entity. Each shift of these unseen currents brings a fresh wave of that sharp, sulfuric tang, a renewed prickling on your skin that makes your eyes water even more profusely, blurring the impenetrable gloom with fresh, hot tears. Your lungs burn, not just from the constant irritation, but from the sheer effort of trying to draw breath through this thickened, palpable air. Each inhale feels like pulling against a heavy, wet blanket, the air resisting, denying, making your chest ache with a dull, persistent pressure. You can almost feel the individual particles of grit and moisture suspended within it, clinging to the inside of your nostrils, coating your windpipe with a coarse, insidious film that refuses to be cleared. You hear a low, pained groan from an unseen figure nearby, a sound that seems to reverberate through the dense gas itself, as if the very air is amplifying the suffering. You press your gloved hand to your mouth, trying to filter the insidious substance, but it's futile. The gas penetrates, cold and damp, a physical barrier and a chemical assailant all at once. Even the weak, distorted light from an unseen gas lamp seems to struggle against its weight, appearing as a hazy, pulsating core within the killer cloud, barely illuminating the swirling gray depths that comprise its vast, suffocating body. You stumble forward, your boots sinking slightly into a patch of what feels like condensed, damp grime on the cobblestones, a physical manifestation of the gas that has settled, heavy and persistent. The air tastes of sulfur and metal. It feels like wet ash on your skin, and it moves with an internal terrifying logic, a slow, predatory expansion that seems to seek out every breath, every open pore. It makes you understand, with a chilling certainty, that this isn't merely weather or industrial pollution. This is a palpable, almost sentient force, a living, breathing anatomy of poison that has enveloped the city, turning the very source of life into an instrument of profound, inescapable, and utterly intimate suffocation. That metallic taste in your mouth has become a grim, dull constant. But as you push through the choking air towards the imposing avenues of Westminster, a new kind of acridity prickles your senses. It's a bitter blend of the lethal gas and a subtle, almost dusty aroma of old paper, polished wood, and stale decisions, a scent that whispers of immense, unyielding power. Your lungs burn, a persistent, raw ache with every shallow, ragged breath. But here, the very air feels thicker, weighted with an unspoken, cold authority. The gas itself is as dense and impenetrable as ever, a vast, gray blanket that smothers the grand, formidable architecture of the Houses of Parliament. You can't see the iconic clock tower, only a vast, indistinct smudge against the bruised sky, yet you hear it. The distant, heavy chime of Big Ben struggles to break through the thick atmosphere, its resonant strike muffled, distorted, a mournful echo of a time that insists on passing, indifferent to the suffering below. Each chime feels like a slow, deliberate pronouncement, a cold, unwavering rhythm in a world that has utterly lost its way. You stumble forward, your boots heavy on the paving stones, straining to make sense of the obscured figures around you. Carriages, usually moving with brisk efficiency, are now stalled or creeping at a glacial pace, their drivers coughing, their faces a pale blur of frustration and growing fear. You glimpse official-looking individuals, their dark, tailored coats appearing as mere smudges in the gloom. They move with an air of urgent, yet ultimately helpless, importance. Their hurried, muffled footsteps suggest a purpose, a destination. But their shoulders are hunched, their heads down, their own bodies racked by the same violent, tearing coughs that plague every soul in this city. The metallic tang in your mouth sharpens, mingling with a rising sense of indignation. This is the heart of the empire, the seat of government, yet it is as blind, as choked, as paralyzed as the lowest street. You see a grand door, usually guarded by stern-faced officials, now standing ajar, leading into a cavernous, unseen interior, but the gas flows freely in and out, unburdened by rank or importance. The air within smells no different, offering no sanctuary. The hum of bureaucracy, the quiet grind of power, seems to persist beneath the chaos, a relentless, indifferent drone. You hear a low, authoritative voice attempt to give an order from within the haze, but it quickly dissolves into a hacking cough, a stark reminder of who truly holds sway in this poisoned city. The sense of profound, systemic helplessness is overwhelming. The structures of power stand, grand and imposing, yet they are as vulnerable, as breathless as any man or woman on the street, enveloped by an enemy that respects no station, no authority. It makes you realize, doesn't it, how utterly insignificant human constructs of power can become when faced with a force of nature, or an industrial disaster, that sweeps through indiscriminately. How the very systems meant to protect and guide can be rendered blind and breathless, their authority dissolved into the poisoned air, leaving only the cold, indifferent hum of a world that continues its inexorable turn, regardless of the suffering it contains. That familiar, insidious metallic tang is a constant abrasion in your mouth, a bitter film that coats your tongue. But here, in the cold shadow of Westminster, it has fused with another, more pungent stench. It's the acrid, choking smoke of cheap, badly burning coal, damp and sulphurous, mixed with something else. Something vaguely like wet ash and the ghost of singed paper. This isn't just the ordinary soot of London. This is a desperate, inefficient burning. A smell that feels like bureaucracy itself, slowly, painfully incinerating. Your lungs burn with a relentless scraping fire, each shallow breath a raw testament to the corrosive air. But now, as you push through the unyielding gloom, that harsh, sooty smoke bites at your throat, adding another layer of irritation, a deeper, more insistent cough that racks your entire frame. Your eyes, already streaming, feel like they're being rubbed with fine grit and acid, blurring the opaque gray into an even more impenetrable void. You find yourself pressed close to the cold, damp stone walls of what you can only assume is a government building, its grand, imposing facade swallowed by the toxic air. From within, through half-open heavy doors, the smell of that bad coal burning is even stronger, a suffocating wave that promises no respite, no warmth, only a deeper, more profound choking. You hear muffled footsteps, hurried and erratic, and the occasional sharp, frustrated cry quickly dissolved by a tearing cough. The sounds are not of decisive action, but of frantic, desperate scrambling in the dark. You glimpse figures, dark smudges moving past unseen windows, their vague outlines suggesting officials, perhaps clerks or politicians, moving with an urgency that feels undirected, futile. Their movements are hampered by the gas, their forms stooped, their handkerchiefs pressed to their mouths, their faces, though obscured, undoubtedly etched with the same fear and desperation that grips the rest of the city. Even here, at the supposed heart of rational governance, the only visible action is frantic, individual survival. The metallic taste in your mouth, now mingled with the bitter chemical tang of the burning coal smoke, is a chilling reminder of the utter failure of the systems meant to protect you. The very air you breathe feels like it's mocking the grandeur around you, seeping through every crack, turning official chambers into just another smoke-filled, gasping room. The scent is one of decay, not just of physical structures, but of an entire institution struggling to breathe, burning its own foundations in a futile attempt to fend off the inevitable. It makes you understand, doesn't it, the profound irony of a system designed for order and control, brought to its knees by an invisible, fundamental element. How the very structures of power can be rendered utterly blind and powerless, forced to breathe the bitter, choking smoke of their own making. A testament to the fact that even the grandest designs of man can be suffocated by a poison in the air, leaving nothing but the acrid smell of burning futility. That bitter, metallic taste in your mouth is now so familiar it feels like a part of your own exhaustion, a constant, unpleasant companion. Your lungs burn with a relentless, tearing fire, each shallow breath a raw scrape that drains what little strength you have left. You're stumbling blindly, your outstretched hand brushing against cold, damp brick, then empty, suffocating air when it happens. A hand, not your own, not a solid wall, but another human hand. It finds yours in the impenetrable gray, a sudden, firm, yet surprisingly gentle clasp. The fingers are rough, calloused, the skin dry and slightly cool, yet its warmth against your cold, clammy palm is undeniable, a shock of human contact in the profound isolation. For a split second, a jolt of pure instinctual alarm shoots through you, a stranger, unbidden, in this blind, dangerous world. Your muscles tense, ready to recoil, to pull away from the unknown, but then the grip tightens ever so slightly, a steady, reassuring pressure that doesn't pull violently but subtly, a silent invitation to follow. It's a deliberate guidance, not a desperate grab. You hesitate, your heart hammering a frantic rhythm against your ribs, the metallic taste in your mouth momentarily overshadowed by a surge of raw, unfamiliar emotion. Trust, in this choking abyss where sight offers no witness and the air itself is an enemy, is a terrifying gamble. Yet, the hand moves again, a gentle, insistent tug, and you find yourself taking a hesitant step, then another, surrendering to this unseen companion, allowing them to lead you through the endless murk. Your feet, usually scuffing uncertainly, now follow with a strange, almost instinctual rhythm, anchored by that warm, guiding touch. The chaos of the street, the muffled coughs, the distant, desperate cries still echo around you, but they seem to recede, pushed to the periphery by the intense, almost visceral focus on this single point of contact. You don't know who this person is, man or woman, young or old. There's no greeting, no words exchanged, only the silent, shared understanding of desperate navigation. You can feel the slight tremors in their own hand, the shallow, quick rhythm of their breath, a silent testament to their vulnerability, a mirroring of your own. Their body, a faint, warm presence just ahead, moves with a purposeful slowness, their coat perhaps brushing against yours, offering a fleeting, physical anchor in the formless void. The grip remains firm, a tether in the suffocating gray. You feel a fragile hope flicker, a desperate, almost primal relief that you are not entirely alone in this disorienting, toxic darkness. The air still chokes, the taste still lingers, but for this moment, you are being led. guided by an act of unexpected connection in a world that has otherwise abandoned all sense of humanity and order. It's a small, profound comfort, a momentary reprieve from the relentless fear. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how profound the simple act of human connection can be when stripped of all other senses, when the world around you dissolves into a hostile void. How in the deepest, most terrifying darkness, a single guiding touch from a stranger can become an unexpected beacon, a fragile thread of shared humanity, a desperate, unspoken promise of solidarity against the overwhelming indifference of a poisoned world. That familiar, insidious metallic tang has settled deep in your mouth, a constant, bitter film. But now, it's not the most prominent sensation. Your hand is still clasped, warm and firm, within the rough, calloused grip of the stranger. It is your only anchor, your sole connection to another living soul in this suffocating, sightless world, and it dictates your every movement. You follow, one hesitant step after another, guided by the subtle pressure of their fingers, the slight tug of their arm. Their movements are cautious, deliberate, not the frantic scramble of a desperate individual, but a slow, careful navigation. You can feel the slight shift in their weight as they anticipate an unseen obstacle, the gentle pull as they steer you around a collision course. Each shift, each subtle communication, is received not through words, but through the visceral language of touch, a trust building between you with every blind, shared step. Your lungs still burn, a deep, persistent ache, and the shallow, ragged rhythm of your own breathing is now joined by theirs, a faint, rhythmic rasp that sounds close, shared. You can feel the vibration of their coughs, transmitted through their hand, a silent acknowledgement of the same poison you both inhale. The pervasive gloom still presses in, heavy and suffocating, but with this guiding touch, the sense of utter isolation has receded, replaced by a profound, if unspoken, solidarity. You pass through another swirl of gas, a pocket of air that feels denser, thicker, and you feel the stranger's hand tighten momentarily, a silent reassurance, a shared struggle against the suffocating embrace. Their body, a warm, indistinct presence just ahead, feels like a shield against the oppressive void. You brush past another unseen figure, their desperate cough echoing, and for a moment you feel a jolt of alarm, but the steady grip of the stranger's hand holds you firm, pulling you gently onward, away from the chaos. The usual judgments, the silent assessments of status or appearance that define so much of London life, are utterly gone. Without sight, without a face to see, all that remains is the simple, undeniable fact of another human being, reaching out, offering guidance, enduring the same suffering. Their hand, their breath, their careful movements, these are the only identifiers, and they speak a language of shared vulnerability, of unexpected kindness, that transcends the terrifying darkness. It makes you truly understand, doesn't it, how in the deepest, most blinding darkness, humanity finds its truest expression. How the absence of sight can strip away superficial barriers, revealing the profound, elemental need for connection, for trust, and for the simple, selfless act of one hand guiding another through an unseen, suffocating peril. In the heart of the poison, a fragile, enduring light of human empathy flickers, proving that even when you cannot see a face, you can still find humanity. That pervasive, bitter metallic taste in your mouth has become almost secondary now, a background hum to the unsettling quiet that presses in around you. Your lungs burn, a raw, insistent fire that feels like it's being choked by something far heavier than mere air. You're pushing through the unending, opaque gray, your hands outstretched when you realize it. The city, usually a roaring, clamoring beast, has been utterly silenced, as if swallowed by a vast, soundproofed chamber. The gas isn't just stealing your sight. It's actively dampening every sound, absorbing it, twisting it into something distant and unrecognizable. The usual cacophony of London, the sharp clatter of hooves, the rumble of carts, the distant cries of vendors, the incessant babble of human voices, all of it is gone. Instead, there's a profound, unnerving quiet, the heavy shroud that smothers every potential noise before it can properly form. You can almost feel the pressure of it in your ears, a tangible force pressing inward, sealing you off from the world. You take a shallow, struggling breath, and even the rasp of your own lungs, usually so distinct, feels muted, swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere. You hear the faint, scraping shuffle of unseen footsteps nearby, but they feel like they're coming from miles away, ghosts of sound barely registering. You strain your ears, trying to catch a recognizable word, a clear voice, but all that reaches you is a low, indistinct murmur, a formless echo that offers no meaning, no direction. You brush past a solid, unmoving form, likely a parked carriage, and you can faintly hear the restless snort of an unseen horse. But even that is diminished, robbed of its usual sharp clarity. The sheer effort of trying to perceive anything through the pervasive gloom, both visually and orally, is exhausting you, making your head throb with a dull, insistent ache. The metallic taste in your mouth seems to deepen, a bitter reflection of this profound sensory deprivation. Figures pass. Dark blurs in the choking haze, their movements hesitant, their usual confident stride replaced by a cautious, almost desperate shuffle. You can sense their presence, their proximity, but their steps are almost silent, their coughs mere whispers swallowed by the air. It's like watching a silent film play out, where frantic, struggling actors move without a soundtrack, their efforts rendered eerily ineffective by the absence of audible sound. The shared panic, usually so loud, is now a silent scream, an internal terror that finds no voice. It makes you understand with a chilling clarity how much of our connection to the world, how much of our very sanity, relies on the constant feedback of sound. How the city, once a vibrant auditory tapestry, can be turned into a suffocating silent prison, where even the cries of distress are muted, leaving you utterly isolated, adrift in a vast, soundproofed chamber of fear and desperate unheard struggle. That bitter metallic tang, a constant film in your mouth, is now almost overshadowed by a deeper, more insidious sensation. Your lungs burn, a raw, insistent fire that feels like it's struggling against not just the gas, but against an oppressive, almost physical silence. You're pushing through the thick, gray murk, your hands outstretched, when you realize that the city's voice, once merely muffled, is now actively malicious, whispering a nightmare directly into your ears. The gas itself isn't just a visual obscurer, it's a living, breathing sound engineer, twisting and distorting reality. That faint clatter you heard moments ago? It's now an unsettling scrape that seems to emanate from just inches away, yet when you pivot, straining to locate it, it recedes, replaced by a low, guttural thud that feels like something vast and unseen collapsing in the impenetrable gloom. Your heart hammers against your ribs, not just from the poisoned air, but from the sheer terror of auditory deception, of sounds that paint horrifying, formless pictures in your mind. You strain your ears, desperate for clarity, for a recognizable sound, but all you find is a cruel, mocking mimicry. A distant cry for help becomes a drawn-out, mournful wail, like a lost spirit caught in the gas, chilling you to the bone. A hurried shuffle of unseen footsteps morphs into a dragging, uneven tread, conjuring images of something wounded, or worse, something predatory, stalking through the opaque void. The metallic taste in your mouth sharpens, a bitter counterpoint to the terrifying shapes your mind now assigns to these phantom sounds. The muffled, desperate coughs of other unseen people, a familiar and shared misery, now seem to come from impossible directions, echoing off unseen walls, ricocheting through the dense atmosphere. They sound closer, then further, then everywhere at once, a suffocating chorus that makes your head throb with profound disorientation. You reach out, blindly, to grasp for something solid, a point of reference, but find only the yielding, damp nothingness of the gas. The silence between these distorted echoes is even more unnerving, a heavy, dead weight that promises untold, unseen horrors. You feel a profound sense of isolation, not just from the world you once saw, but from the world you thought you could hear. Every sound is a question, every absence a terrifying blank slate onto which your fear projects the darkest possibilities. The air itself seems to whisper, to deceive, turning the familiar streets of London into an auditory labyrinth of dread, where your own ears become instruments of your psychological torment. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how utterly the mind can be manipulated when its most reliable senses are corrupted. How the shapes of a nightmare can be woven not from what you see, but from the insidious silence and distorted whispers that fill a world where truth and deception become indistinguishable, leaving you lost in a horrifying landscape crafted purely from sound and fear. That bitter metallic taste in your mouth has become a dull, persistent ache, a constant film on your tongue that no amount of desperate swallowing can dislodge. Your lungs burn, a raw, insistent fire with every shallow, ragged breath. But now, something else begins to prickle your eyelids, a sensation almost forgotten, almost alien, a faint, almost imperceptible lightening in the unending gray murk. You stop, your hand instinctively reaching out to the unseen wall beside you, your heart hammering a frantic rhythm against your ribs. Your eyes, red-rimmed and streaming from hours of irritation, try to focus, desperate to discern if this is real, or merely a cruel trick of your exhausted mind. For a fleeting moment, the gray seems to shift, to thin, just a fraction, revealing not clarity, but a denser, almost creamy texture within the gas itself. Then, through the pervasive gloom, you see it. A high, indistinct smudge of dirty orange, a pale, smeared disk that hangs in the oppressive sky. It's the sun, or what passes for it now. It looks like a sickly, greasy yolk, bleeding its weak, watery light through the thick, clinging layers of gas, offering no warmth, no true illumination, only a faint, struggling presence. The metallic taste in your mouth seems to intensify, a bitter counterpoint to this compromised dawn. Around you, others pause, their hurried, muffled footsteps slowing, then stopping entirely. You hear a collective intake of breath, a low, hesitant murmur that ripples through the invisible crowd. Faces, previously just blurred shapes, now appear as faint, ashen smudges, their eyes, though still red and watering, straining upwards towards that ghostly orb. A child nearby lets out a small, wet cough, but then points an uncertain, trembling finger towards the sky, its tiny gesture, a universal recognition of the return of light, however tainted. The gas doesn't vanish. It simply softens, turning from a suffocating blanket into a vast, swirling haze, still thick enough to distort all forms, still heavy enough to make your lungs ache with every inhale. The light, weak and sickly, casts no shadows, offers no real clarity, only a profound sense of relief that the absolute darkness is breaking, however reluctantly. You can faintly make out the distant, dark outlines of rooftops, jagged teeth against the greasy sky, but they still feel unreal, like a poorly rendered drawing in a forgotten book. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how desperately we cling to the smallest flicker of hope, even when that hope is fragile, distorted, and stained by the very source of our suffering. How the return of light, even a greasy, poisoned light, can stir something primal within us, reminding us that even the darkest night eventually gives way to a dawn, however reluctantly, however imperfectly, it might arrive. The greasy, sickly orange smudge of the sun hangs high above, a weak, diluted promise of light. The gas, though still pervasive, has thinned enough for outlines to become visible, for shapes to emerge from the relentless gray. But this returning clarity brings with it a chilling new realization, a visceral testament to the poison that has enveloped the city, a profound, inescapable layer of grime. You lift your gloved hand, and through the still-present haze you see it. Your coat, once a deep, sturdy black, is now coated with a fine, dark powder, like a layer of dry, sooty ash. You brush it with your fingers, and it clings, leaving a greasy black smear across your thumb, a tangible mark of the gas's physical corruption. It's not just dirt. It's a profound, persistent film, an intimate, sickening reminder of the air you've been forced to breathe. You look around, your eyes, though still stinging and blurred, trying to take in the landscape. Every surface is coated. The venerable brick of buildings, once a rich, varied red, is now uniformly darkened, caked in a fine, black crust that seems to absorb the weak light. The usually vibrant painted shop signs are dull, muted, their colors obscured by this pervasive film, as if someone has draped a dirty, gray veil over the entire city. Even the cobblestones beneath your feet, damp and slick, are not just wet, but covered in a viscous, dark sludge, making each step feel heavy and unclean. The bitter metallic taste in your mouth persists, but now it's infused with the raw, earthy flavor of this thick, chemical soot, a taste that feels like dust and metal and despair. Your lungs still burn, a deep, raw ache, and each shallow breath brings with it the lingering scent of stale sulfur and damp, chemical ash. You reach out and touch the rough bark of a street tree, and it too is coated, its natural texture now hidden beneath a thick, black, almost greasy film. The natural world itself has been suffocated, its vitality choked by this pervasive residue. You see other people, their faces now visible as pale, drawn masks, their clothes equally blackened, streaked with the evidence of their struggle through the thick, toxic air. There's a quiet despair in their eyes, a shared, unspoken understanding that the gas may be dissipating, but its indelible mark remains, a physical scar etched onto the very skin of the city, and on everything, everyone within it. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how deeply and intimately a disaster can leave its mark, not just on the air we breathe, but on the very fabric of our lives, the textures we touch, the sights we see. How even when the immediate terror recedes, the physical evidence of corruption remains, a permanent, blackened film that serves as a grim, ever-present reminder of the days when the city itself choked on a lethal, unseen enemy. The bitter metallic taste still lingers in your mouth, a tenacious film that clings to your tongue, but now it's infused with the profound, undeniable stench of illness and death. Your lungs burn, a deep, raw ache with every shallow breath, each one a painful reminder of the days of choking gas. The haze has thinned enough to reveal the city, but the returning vision is more horrifying than the blindness. You are walking past a row of terraced houses, their blackened facades now visible, but your gaze is drawn to the pavement. It's here, laid out in chilling precision, that the true cost of the gas becomes horrifyingly clear. Coffins. So many coffins. Wooden boxes, dark and unadorned, of all sizes, lined up along the street, some propped against railings, others simply left on the grimy cobblestones. A silent, grim parade of the departed, waiting. The sheer number of them is overwhelming, a stark, undeniable testament to the unseen enemy that swept through London. Your foot almost brushes against a small, child-sized coffin. Its simple wood rough and stained with the pervasive soot, a heartbreaking testament to shattered innocence. A cold knot tightens in your stomach. The metallic taste in your mouth seems to intensify, a bitter reflection of the countless lives extinguished. A horse-drawn cart, usually bustling with goods, creaks slowly by, not delivering bread or coal, but piled high with these somber wooden boxes. Its driver, his face pale and grim, doesn't meet your gaze, his shoulders slumped with a burden that goes beyond the physical weight of his cargo. The air, though clearer, still carries the lingering scent of damp earth, and something sweet, sickly, and utterly final, a smell that clings to the wood, to the air, to your very memory. People move past, their faces drawn and tear-streaked, their eyes lowered, avoiding the silent wooden testimony to loss. Some pause, their hands reaching out, trembling, to touch the cold, unyielding wood of a coffin, a final, desperate act of farewell in a world that has been turned upside down. The silence where there should be mourning is profound, punctuated only by the distant, muffled tolling of a church bell, a solemn, relentless rhythm counting the departed. Your own chest aches, not just from the lingering effects of the gas, but from the unbearable weight of this collective grief, this stark, unvarnished display of death on the streets of London. It's a physical manifestation of the invisible war, a horrifying tally of its victims, laid bare for all to see. It makes you understand, doesn't it, the true, devastating scale of a disaster that strips away the very dignity of death, leaving its victims arrayed for all to witness. How quickly life can be extinguished, and how profoundly the unseen breath can become the ultimate, undeniable, and universally shared agent of finality. The coffins are not just wood and nails. They are the unbearable weight of a city's broken heart, laid out for the world to mourn. The air, though visibly thinning, still hangs heavy, clinging to your coat with a damp, oppressive weight. That bitter metallic taste, now a familiar and unwelcome guest on your tongue, is overshadowed by a deeper, far more insidious stench. It's the raw, cloying sweetness of decay, subtle yet undeniable, mingling with the pervasive, acrid smell of damp soot and spent sulfur, a sickly, chemical perfume that seems to rise from the very cobblestones, clinging to every breath you draw. Your lungs, which have endured days of burning, still ache with a dull, persistent fire, but now each shallow inhale brings with it this suffocating bouquet of death and industrial grime. It coats the back of your throat, a foul, persistent taste that makes your stomach clench with renewed nausea. You try to breathe through your mouth, then your nose, but there is no escaping it. The air itself has become a carrier of this pervasive, sickening truth. You pass another silent row of coffins, their dark wood now clearer in the dissipating haze, but the scent around them is almost overwhelming, a visceral punch that makes your head throb. Even the ordinary sounds of the city, now slowly returning, the distant rattle of a cart, a muffled cry, are tainted, seemingly carrying the foul aroma on their very vibrations. People walk by, their faces visible now as pale, gaunt masks, their eyes sunken, but it's their gestures that speak volumes. Hands pressed firmly to mouths, handkerchiefs held tightly over noses, a collective, desperate, yet futile attempt to filter the air, to deny the pervasive truth that has infused every corner of London. You notice a young woman, her shoulders shaking, stumble near a doorway. She isn't coughing. She's silently gagging, her body recoiling from an unseen cloud of the concentrated stench. Her movements are slow, weary, as if the air itself has become a physical burden, weighing down her every step. The metallic tang in your mouth seems to deepen, a bitter reflection of this all-encompassing, inescapable contamination. The weak, watery sun, a greasy smudge in the still hazy sky, offers no purification. Its faint light only illuminates the fine, black film that covers every surface, a tangible testament to the gas, now overlaid with the insidious scent that proclaims its true, horrifying legacy. This isn't just the smell of coal smoke anymore. This is the lingering breath of a city that has just choked on its own life, and the air itself is a witness, forever tainted. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how the true horror of an invisible disaster isn't just in the immediate chaos or the visible death toll. It's in the way its invisible tendrils linger, staining the very air, permeating every breath, becoming a permanent, sickening reminder that even after the storm has passed, the world can remain profoundly, irrevocably changed, forever carrying the ghost of its corruption on the very winds that blow. The bitter metallic taste still lingers in your mouth, a dry, unpleasant film that seems to have permanently etched itself onto your tongue. Your lungs ache with a dull, persistent fire, and each shallow breath brings with it the lingering, acrid scent of damp soot and spent sulfur, a constant reminder of the invisible enemy that has just swept through London. The gas, though now visibly thinning, still hangs heavy in the air, a vast gray shroud that coats everything in a grimy patina. You stand in a familiar square, the grand architecture slowly emerging from the receding haze. But your gaze is drawn, with an almost morbid fascination, to the statues. These figures, usually resolute and gleaming, standing as proud sentinels of history, are now eerily transformed. Their once noble, stoic faces are streaked with black, the delicate contours of their carved features obscured by thick, greasy grime. It looks as if they've been weeping tears of pure soot, their stone cheeks stained with dark rivulets that run down their unmoving forms. You reach out instinctively and touch the cold, rough stone of a plinth. Your fingers come away coated in a fine, sticky film, a viscous black residue that resists efforts to wipe it clean. The metallic taste in your mouth seems to intensify, a bitter reflection of this profound, pervasive corruption. The very air around these monuments seems to vibrate with a silent indictment, a chilling testament to the corrosive power of the gas. The bronze statues, usually boasting a proud, verdant patina, are now a dull, uniform black, their surfaces utterly stripped of any luster. The intricate details of their sculpted robes, the strong lines of their faces, are blurred, softened, almost melted by the clinging grime, as if the gas has actively begun to dissolve their very essence. They look like ghosts of their former selves, mournful shadows against the backdrop of the gray, suffocating city. People walk past, their own faces drawn and pale, their clothes equally stained, but their eyes, when they glance at these altered monuments, hold a particular, shared dread. It's a silent understanding. If the gas could corrupt stone and metal, immutable symbols of permanence, what hope do their own fragile bodies have against its insidious, lasting effects? The statues, once symbols of enduring strength, have become poignant, corroded reflections of the city's own deep internal wounds. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how even the most enduring symbols of human achievement and permanence can be reduced, corroded, and transformed into grim, silent witnesses to an unseen disaster. How a city's very identity, etched in stone and metal, can be subtly yet irrevocably altered by an invisible enemy, leaving behind a permanent, blackened scar that serves as a chilling testament to its enduring, corrosive power. That bitter metallic taste still clings to your mouth, a dry, unpleasant film that whispers of the pervasive poison. Your lungs ache with a dull, persistent fire, and each shallow breath brings with it the lingering, acrid scent of damp soot and spent sulfur, a constant reminder of the gas's insidious passage. The haze has thinned, allowing the city's grand structures to emerge, but the clarity brings with it a chilling new detail: the permanent scars etched into the very stone. You run your hand along the rough, cold surface of a monument. It's not just coated in grime. The stone itself feels eroded, softened in places, its sharp edges slightly rounded, its texture subtly changed. Your fingers, already coated with the greasy soot, now trace faint, almost imperceptible grooves, hollows where the acid in the gas has eaten away at the surface, creating new, unintentional textures that speak of slow, relentless corrosion. It's as if the very air has been an abrasive, endlessly grinding against the unyielding stone. You look closer, your eyes, though still stinging, discerning patterns in the damage. Areas that were once sheltered, perhaps beneath a projecting cornice, show a slight difference, a fractional preservation of their original texture. But the exposed surfaces, the faces, the upraised arms, the intricate carvings, bear the full brunt of the assault. They are not merely dirty. They are physically altered, their intended expressions softened into vague, almost pained blurs, as if the statues themselves have wept away their own features under the corrosive onslaught. The metallic taste in your mouth seems to deepen, a bitter reflection of this profound, enduring damage. The air, though clearer, still feels somehow abrasive, leaving a slight sting on your exposed skin, as if the corrosive elements are still present, still working their slow, insidious magic. You hear the distant, muffled sounds of the city attempting to return to life, but the sight of these scarred monuments lends a hollow, mournful quality to every sound, a somber backdrop to any attempted normalcy. You see a group of children, their faces still pale, pointing at the statues, their small fingers tracing the dark streaks. They are too young to remember these monuments in their pristine state, yet even they sense the profound alteration, the new, grim narrative etched into the stone. The permanence of it is chilling. This isn't a mess that can be simply wiped away. These are deep, undeniable wounds, a lasting testament to the gas's destructive power, a history written in the very architecture of London. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how the true impact of an invisible disaster isn't just measured in lives lost, but in the enduring, visible scars it leaves on the very environment, on the immutable symbols of a city's past. How an unseen enemy can etch its presence into stone, transforming monuments of glory into poignant, silent witnesses to its destructive power, forever changing the face of the city and the way you perceive its seemingly eternal foundations. The bitter metallic taste still lingers, a dry, unpleasant film that coats your tongue, but now it's overlaid with the familiar, faintly chemical tang of newsprint, the scent of fresh ink and cheap paper. Your lungs ache with a dull, persistent fire, and each shallow breath brings with it the lingering, acrid smell of damp soot and spent sulfur, a constant reminder of the gas's insidious passage. But the air, thankfully, is much clearer now. You watch a newsboy, his face pale and drawn, But his voice, though hoarse, is no longer muffled by the choking gas. Read all about it. Great fog disaster. Thousands dead, he cries, his voice raw, yet imbued with a desperate urgency that cuts through the still subdued sounds of the city. His papers are not neatly stacked, but fanned out, almost desperately. Across the damp cobblestones, a stark, unyielding tapestry of grim truth. You reach down, your fingers trembling slightly, and pick up a discarded paper. The coarse newsprint feels strangely damp, its surface gritty with the fine, pervasive soot that coats everything. Your thumb brushes against the bold, black letters of a headline, and the ink, instead of being dry and firm, feels oddly soft, almost smudged, clinging to your skin with a startling, greasy residue. It's a chilling, physical sensation, as if the grim news itself has become a palpable, sticky substance, transferring its despair directly to your touch. You trace the letters with your fingertip, a deep, unsettling chill running through you as you read the stark, undeniable numbers. Thousands perished. The metallic taste in your mouth seems to intensify, a bitter, coppery pang that reflects the cold, hard facts laid out before you. Your eyes, still a little blurry from the gas, fixate on the grim figures, your mind struggling to comprehend the sheer scale of the disaster, the horrifying human cost of what everyone dismissed as mere fog. People gather around the newsboy, their faces a mixture of shock, grief, and a dawning terrible understanding. They snatch up papers, their fingers smudging the headlines, their breaths catching in their throats, not from the gas, but from the raw impact of the printed word. You see a woman, her face streaked with tears, press the paper to her chest, as if trying to absorb the truth, or perhaps to ward off its chilling reality. The air around you, though free from the oppressive murk, still carries the faint, acrid scent of the gas, a lingering ghost that now seems to embody the very weight of the printed tragedy. The casual brush of newsprint, usually so innocuous, has become a shocking conduit of cold, undeniable truth, a physical transfer of sorrow. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how sometimes the most abstract horrors are made brutally real by the simplest, most tangible details, how the weight of human suffering, the true scale of an invisible killer, can be conveyed not just by numbers, but by the shocking touch of a headline, the greasy smear of ink on your thumb, a permanent, tactile reminder of a city's profound, unspoken grief. The bitter metallic taste still lingers in your mouth, a tenacious film that stubbornly clings to your tongue. But now, it's infused with the raw, volatile tang of anger, a sharp, almost electrical charge that prickles the back of your throat. Your lungs still ache with a dull, persistent fire, and each shallow breath brings with it the lingering, acrid smell of damp soot and spent sulfur, a constant reminder of the gas's insidious passage. But the air, though still holding its grim perfume, now vibrates with a different kind of energy, a rising, undeniable roar. You stand amidst a growing crowd, their faces, though still pale and drawn, no longer show only grief or confusion. Instead, their eyes flash with a fierce, unified indignation. The newsboy's cries, though still raw, have been dwarfed by a new, more powerful sound. It starts as a murmur, a low, guttural rumble, then swells into a collective shout, a roar that rises from hundreds of throats, echoing off the still blackened buildings. Enough, we demand answers. Who is responsible? The individual cries merge into a singular, undeniable voice of outrage. You feel the ground beneath your feet vibrate with the collective movement, the restless shift of countless bodies, a tangible manifestation of a public finally awakened from its stunned silence. A woman near you, her face streaked with tears and soot, raises her fist, her voice, usually soft, now a piercing shriek of fury. A man, his collar still caked with grime, gestures wildly at a discarded newspaper, its damning headline a catalyst for this eruption of raw, unvarnished anger. The metallic taste in your mouth seems to sharpen, reflecting the bitter edge of their shared fury. The air, though visibly clearer, now feels charged, thick with the palpable energy of outrage. It's an almost electrical current, flowing from one person to the next, igniting a shared sense of betrayal and a desperate demand for accountability. The distant, muffled sounds of the city, attempting to return to normalcy, are now utterly overshadowed by this powerful, unified human sound, a primal bellow against injustice. The gas may have stolen their breath, but it has not stolen their voices, or their capacity for righteous fury. You watch as more people join, their numbers swelling, their faces a sea of grim determination, their collective roar growing louder, more insistent. This isn't the chaotic panic of lost souls. This is the focused, undeniable force of a community rising up, its grief transformed into a powerful political demand. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how a profound tragedy, once fully comprehended, can ignite a fire that burns brighter than any gaslight, hotter than any forge. How a period of shared suffering, of collective blindness and breathlessness, can finally coalesce into a formidable, unified voice, a roar of a public finally awakened to the truth, demanding answers, and refusing to be silenced again. The bitter metallic taste, though dulled, still clings to your mouth like a phantom, a ghost of the pervasive poison. Your lungs ache with a persistent, raw fire. But now, a different warmth begins to prickle your face, a subtle, radiating heat that feels both comforting and deeply unsettling. The air, though far clearer, still carries the lingering, acrid scent of damp soot and spent sulfur, but beneath it, a new, almost nostalgic smell begins to assert itself, the familiar, comforting aroma of burning coal. You turn a corner, and through the still-present thin haze, you see it. A faint, orange glow emanating from a grimy window, a flickering warmth that promises respite from the cold, damp London air. It's a coal fire, the kind that used to blaze in every hearth, offering cheer and heat. But now it feels different, almost forbidden, imbued with a chilling new meaning. This isn't the clean, robust burn of high-quality fuel. This is the last glow of a desperate, perhaps illegal, fire, its smoke adding a subtle, familiar, yet profoundly unsettling taint to the air. You draw closer, your boots scuffing on the cobblestones. The heat on your face intensifies, a raw, almost stinging warmth that feels strange after days of cold and suffocation. You peer through the grimy pane of glass, and inside, a small, hunched figure, an elderly woman perhaps, tends to a meager fire, its cheap coal spitting and hissing, releasing faint tendrils of pale gray smoke that curl upwards, then dissipate into the still heavy air of the room. Her face, though obscured by the glass and the dim light, seems etched with a profound weariness, her movements slow, deliberate, as if tending a fragile, rebellious spark. The metallic taste in your mouth sharpens, mingled with the familiar, yet now ominous, aroma of burning coal. Your lungs, already scarred, tighten almost instinctively at the scent. You realize, with a chilling certainty, that this very act, this simple, age-old comfort of a warm fire, is what contributed to the killer cloud that choked the city. The warmth, the cheer, the very essence of home, now carry the bitter tang of complicity, the silent accusation of a necessary poison. Other figures, emerging from the lingering haze, cast furtive glances at the glow, their faces a mixture of yearning and suspicion. They long for its warmth, but they instinctively recoil from the subtle, yet undeniable plume of smoke that curls from the chimney above, a ghost of the disaster still lingering in the cold air. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how the most innocent comforts, the most cherished traditions, can become intertwined with profound unintended consequences. How the warmth of a fire, once a symbol of life and home, can now carry the bitter memory of suffocation, a reminder that even our simplest needs can unwittingly fuel a silent, insidious threat, leaving behind only the last, defiant glow of a forbidden comfort. The bitter metallic taste, that tenacious film on your tongue, has finally begun to recede, leaving only a faint, phantom sensation. Your lungs, though still aching with a dull, persistent fire, now feel a subtle, almost imperceptible lightness, a tentative easing of the constant strain. The air around you, while still holding the memory of damp soot and spent sulfur, has shed its oppressive weight, revealing a clarity you haven't truly felt in days. You stand on a street corner, the buildings around you no longer vague smudges, but sharply defined, their blackened facades stark against a sky that is no longer bruised gray, but a pale, fragile blue. The sun, a true bright disk, casts actual shadows, long and sharp, stretching across the cobblestones. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth on your face sink in, then open them again, taking in the full, stunning panorama of a city, slowly, tentatively, beginning to breathe again. And then you take it. A deep breath. Not a shallow, desperate gasp, but a full, conscious inhale that fills your lungs, reaching places that have been starved for days. It's cool, almost crisp, and carries only the faint, familiar scent of damp earth and distant, ordinary wood smoke, devoid of that acrid metallic tang. It's clean. The sensation is startling, a profound, almost spiritual relief that makes your entire body tingle, a rediscovery of the simplest, most vital act of life. Around you, the city itself seems to be taking its own collective deep breath. The distant clatter of hooves and carriages, once muffled, is now sharp and clear, resounding with a new energy. The shouts of vendors, the calls of newsboys, the excited chatter of children, they all rise, distinct and vibrant, a swelling chorus of life returning. You see people on the street, their faces still etched with weariness, but their shoulders are less hunched, their steps more purposeful. A woman smiles, a tentative, almost disbelieving expression of relief, as she lifts her face to the sun, letting the clean air wash over her. You notice something new in the sky, too, faint against the fragile blue. A wisp of smoke, a single, thin plume rising from a distant factory chimney. But it's different. Not thick and black and choking, but pale, almost translucent, dispersing quickly into the vast open air. It's a visible promise, a tangible sign of change, a testament to decisions being made, to a city learning to breathe without poisoning itself. It makes you understand, doesn't it, the profound, almost miraculous sensation of regaining something so fundamental it was once taken for granted. How the simple act of a clean breath after days of suffocating poison can feel like a profound act of renewal, a testament to resilience, and a powerful, hopeful promise that even the deepest wounds of a city can begin to heal, one clean, life-affirming breath at a time. The faint, phantom metallic taste still lingers. A ghost of the poison on your tongue, but it's distant now, almost an imagined thing. Your lungs, though still carrying the memory of that raw, persistent fire, feel open, expansive, drinking in the air with a newfound, almost joyous ease. The city around you is no longer a blurred, suffocating nightmare, but a vibrant, living canvas, sharpened by the clear, crisp air. You stand in the middle of a bustling thoroughfare, the sunlight, bright and golden, splashing across the soot-stained brickwork, revealing details that were hidden for days. The gas is gone, completely, replaced by a fresh, cool breeze that carries the mingled scents of damp earth, horses, roasting chestnuts, and even the faint, clean tang of the distant river. It's a tapestry of aromas, each distinct, each a testament to a world rediscovered. The sounds of London are back, and they are glorious. The rhythmic clatter of hooves on cobblestones, the cheerful clang of a street vendor's bell, the distant, clear peal of church bells marking the hour, the joyous, unrestrained laughter of children playing in a park, their voices soaring, unburdened by the choking gas. It's a symphony of life, rich and vibrant, a powerful counterpoint to the terrifying silence you endured. You watch as people move with a renewed vigor. Their faces, though still bearing the pallor of illness and loss, are no longer etched with fear. There's a lightness to their steps, a subtle lifting of their shoulders, an almost palpable sense of relief that radiates through the crowds. A woman, her face still pale, stops to gaze at a flower vendor's bright display, her hand reaching out to touch a vibrant bloom, a gesture of rediscovery, of reclaiming simple beauty. The golden sunlight catches on the blackened facades of buildings, highlighting the scars of the gas, the streaks of soot, the dulled grandeur. But now these marks feel less like wounds and more like a testament, a stark reminder of what the city survived. The very air, once an enemy, is now a benevolent force, carrying life and sound and light, purifying as it sweeps through the streets. You take another deep breath, letting the clean, cool air fill your lungs completely. It's a profound moment of connection, not just to the city, but to the sheer, fundamental miracle of existence. London, scarred but defiant, breathes again, and so do you. It makes you understand, doesn't it, the profound, almost spiritual joy of regaining something as fundamental as clean air, as clear sight. How a shared ordeal, a period of collective suffering, can lead to a deeper appreciation for the simplest, most vital elements of life, allowing a city and its people to stand together, breathing again, in a world that, though changed, feels undeniably, miraculously alive. The bitter metallic taste is gone, finally, a distant, unpleasant memory. Your lungs, still healing, expand fully with each breath, drawing in the cool, crisp London air, a sensation so precious it almost makes you want to weep. The city around you is vibrant, alive with sounds and colors, its energy a stark contrast to the suffocating silence you endured. The sky above is a brilliant, unblemished blue, vast and open, a canvas of endless possibility. You find yourself gazing upwards, drinking in the clean expanse, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face, a truly unfiltered warmth that was denied for so long. But even in this moment of profound relief, a subtle disquiet begins to prickle at the back of your mind, a faint echo of caution in the very clearness of the sky. You watch as a distant factory chimney releases a thin plume of smoke. It's pale, almost transparent, and quickly dissipates into the vast, open air, a visible testament to new regulations, to a city learning from its devastating experience. Yet even as you acknowledge the visible change, your eyes instinctively scan the horizon, a subtle, ingrained habit born of days spent in desperate, blind survival. You find yourself wondering, almost unconsciously, if the air is truly clean, if that thin plume is truly harmless. The metallic tang may be gone from your mouth, but its ghost lingers in your subconscious, a permanent filter on your perception of the sky. The sounds of the city, so vital and reassuring, now carry a subtle undertone for you. The distant rumble of a train, the faint, acrid smell of coal from a passing cart. These familiar elements, once mundane, now hold a deeper, almost unsettling resonance. They are reminders of the very forces that, when unchecked, coalesced into the killer cloud. You realize that even in this clean air, the memory of pollution, the potential for its return, is now irrevocably woven into the fabric of your perception. People around you laugh, talk, move with a renewed freedom, their faces bright, their joy palpable. But when their gaze happens to drift towards a distant factory or a puff of smoke from a steam engine, you notice a subtle, momentary flicker in their eyes, a brief tightening of a jaw, a barely perceptible pause in their movements. It's a shared, unspoken understanding, a collective shadow of memory that darkens even the brightest, clearest day. It makes you understand, doesn't it, how an experience of such profound trauma can permanently alter your perception of the world. How a clear sky, a fresh breath, can still carry the faint, insistent echo of a warning, a reminder that the line between life and poison is a fragile one, easily crossed. London may breathe again, but it breathes with a new awareness, a quiet vigilance etched into the very core of its being, a solemn promise never to forget the deadly price of dismissing the unseen.